I'm blessed to be involved with a group called the Small Business Association of Michigan, of course, with Brian Talley, and shared the thoughts and ideas with Brett about trying to bring some educational opportunity to small business owners in conjunction with this meeting. And so we brainstormed a variety of different topics. We've been able to engage some great, look at this just a second. We've been able to engage some great participants, some speakers with us to join in. And these are going to be conversations. We hope that you'll engage with us for these conversations as we go through things. At this point in time, we'll go ahead and dive right into the piece that I'm leading. And it's talking about succession planning. And it's a big issue. We'll cover a couple of those questions. Bring this up real quick. That's my grandson, by the way. So the state of business succession, and it is a big issue, whether you're trying to transition to another family member, somebody in the business ownership, or trying to attract somebody on the outside. Some pretty scary thoughts or scary numbers when you start to look at the whole process of transitioning a business. About 20 to 30% of businesses that go to sell their business are unsuccessful, okay, or are successful. That means 70 to 80% of those that are selling their business, aren't having the success to do the type of transition that they're looking for. Appreciate so there's an issue there. There's a disconnect somewhere. In trying to understand that, as you get deeper into things, you begin to understand. I'm not a good podium guy. Sorry about this. In some different things studies that have been done, 88% have no transition plan. So a business owner is sailing down the path, and then one day he looks in the corner and there's his golf clubs and all of his buddies are on the course, or her buddies are out tennis, or whatever your favorite thing is to do that you're not doing because you're behind your desk as a business owner. That day is, of regret is a hard thing. So having that transition plan in place well in advance of the time that you're looking to retire or move on from your business is very important. And of course, we as business owners identify ourselves as our business, right? And so that becomes a big challenge. And then 80% of those who are looking to transition don't seek out any advice. And that's a scary thought, because you're leaving a lot of value at the table at that point in time. And 90% of business owners, their business is their largest asset. So their focus is to use that liquidity event when they sell their business to fund their retirement. So they better be taking very good care of that. And mystery value, right? Most business owners have no idea what their business is truly worth. They have their thoughts, their ideas. They heard that their buddy down the street sold a similar business at X multiple, that kind of stuff. And so it's important that you understand the value of the business, because I'm in the investment business, the wealth management business. And if you don't understand what the value of your business is, how can you understand what the quality of the lifestyle and retirement you're going to have? Those two things are very, very interconnected. Some other things, 41% of business owners are baby boomers. The youngest baby boomers are 58 years old. So 41% of businesses are in the hands of folks that are either in retirement already or pretty darn close. And so that means there's a lot of turnover going to be happening in business, and it already has. Another interesting fact, only 30% of family-owned businesses pass successfully to the next generation. We're going to have a great conversation with Gina in a little bit about the transition that they're doing, and there are successful ones out there. I've been blessed to work with a few different clients that have been able to successfully pass to the next generation. But it is challenging, and it has its own set of different challenges as well. 50% of those sell transactions that get started become lost in the due diligence process. And there's some things that really impact the reasons why that happens. And then lackadaisical, getting back to a little bit of the understanding of the value of the business. The business owner needs to understand what that lifestyle is going to take to support. And they have to also understand that the sale of their business is one of the largest tax events that they're going to experience. And they're only going to do it once, hopefully, right? And so making sure that you understand the value and the value you need to derive from that business are very important in that process. Who are the buyers? Who are buying businesses out there? Well, relatives, next generation, that's an area. It has its challenges, but that's an area of opportunity for transitioning your business. Existing employees, as a business owner, finding those folks that have the great promise that can carry on the business the way you'd like to see that. That's an opportunity for you to bring them in and groom them for the ability to take on the business in the future. Competitors. Competitors can be an option, but you have to be very, very careful into wading into those waters, right? You have to make sure that you get the non-disclosures and non-competes, and there's a lot of stuff you need to be working closely with an attorney on to protect your business as you open up your books and other things to a potential suitor. Synergistic, businesses that complement what you're doing. You know, you may be making a component, they may be making a component. By bringing those two different businesses together, it's a match that's made perfectly. Or maybe you're both using the same input materials, those kinds of things. So some economies of scale that can help. So that would be an area to look. One of the things that you're seeing out there nowadays, there's a lot of dollars sloshing around in the investment area, the private capital area. We're seeing it, with some opportunities for clients to sell to a consolidator or, the sad part is a lot of times they're looking for depressed values and they're just chasing things to flip them. But they are opportunities that are out there. The other interesting thing, like what got highlighted in Brian's conversation is there's a lot of people leaving the workforce today that have a lot of experience. They may be, former high-level executives that are looking at that next chapter for themselves, and they're seeing that in their, being their own boss and an opportunity to take over an entity. So that's where we're looking at for buyers. Some of the mistakes to avoid: not planning ahead. As Stephen Covey said, you begin with the end in mind, right? So you have to know what that picture has to look like in the end, and then build back from there. Not preparing the business, cleaning up the books, those kinds of things. There's a lot of us that, we don't buy toilet paper anymore. We just bring that home from the business, right? Our cars are on there, all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things that funnel through the business that, you need to start cleaning those things up so that you want the books to look as solid and as correct as you, and clean as possible. And so make sure that, that you've got the business in those steps. Work closely with your CPA, work closely with your attorney. Just an entity difference, moving from a C Corp to an S Corp, some of those kinds of things can make a big difference in how those things come together. Not understanding the process. This is something that you're going to do once in your lifetime, hopefully. Make sure that you understand the process of selling your business and the tools and things that are at your disposal to make that happen. And not investing in great advisors. Again, this is not what you do every day. If you want to maximize your opportunity, make sure that you have a team of folks that are looking out for your best interest throughout that process. And again, not understanding the value. Those are areas that you need to pay attention to as you're planning ahead for that transition opportunity. Preparing for exit. Again, begin with the end in mind, clean up those financial records, get a proper valuation, and engage experts. At this point in time, I'd like to call up Gina Thorson. Gina is the president of Stormy Kromer and Jacquard Products. They are up in Ironwood. We're all very familiar with the Stormy Kromer brand, very proud that it is a UP brand. Gina is also, I think you can grab one of those mics right there. Gina is also on the Small Business Association of Michigan board with me. The unique insights that we have with Gina is that she is in the process of transitioning with her father. And I've had the chance to talk with Gina on a variety of different occasions about that process. And it's kind of a unique window into her point of view of how that is happening, where are the challenges, and what are the opportunities. And so to start with, Gina, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about your pre-Stormy days as you left the UP for warmer territory for a little while.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here and hopefully can shed some insight onto the kind of things that Rich is talking about. But yes, I was the stereotypical kid who grew up in the small town in the UP and wanted to get out as quickly as they could, and thought I had bigger plans than Ironwood could handle. So my degree is actually in arts administration. I had a great love of the arts as a kid and participation in the arts, and of course I was immersed in business my entire life at the kitchen table with my dad and my grandpa. So I thought, well, here's a great way to combine the two things. So after college, my then fiance and I moved to North Texas. He was continuing his degree there. And I got a great job in Dallas, Texas, working for a nonprofit organization called Young Audiences of Greater Dallas that coordinated community artists into the public schools. And I thought it was like my dream job. I got there, and it really was for that part of my life. I got there when it was just growing. Worked with a wonderfully charismatic and inspirational leader, a woman who taught me so much about collaboration, coalition building, leadership. And I had a wonderful career there as we grew from a couple $1 million organization to a $15 million organization that served all 150 elementary schools in the city of Dallas. And when I left, I was the vice president of programs. So I had a very successful career, loved what I did. But the UP has a strong pull, so.
So what was that decision process like? I mean, was your father trying to recruit you on a regular basis? I know, Bob, I can see that happening.
Yeah, I got asked a lot when we would come home. Texas, our summer vacations were back up here. My husband's from Milwaukee, so Midwestern as well. Yes, would you ever consider coming back to be a part of the business? Sorry, Dad, nope. But finally, one of those times, since we were children, since we were quite young, my sister and I both had ownership in the business. So I've been an owner for quite a long time. And so when I did come home, he would involve me in conversation just about the business, how things were going, challenges, high-level stuff. And one year we did that actually in Minneapolis, where some of our advisors that Rich mentioned that you need to look for are, from the financial perspective, all the kind of succession planning lawyers, but also family business kind of helpers. And I had a meeting there on one of our vacations home. And in that meeting, we had been in Dallas about 10 years at that point. And in that meeting, I realized my sister works in the business also, but the leadership and the outward-facing piece of it is not of interest to her. And it was clear in that meeting. And on the plane ride home, I thought, wow, this thing that my grandpa started and that my dad's been doing and that keeps 100 people working in Ironwood, Michigan, might not make it much longer. And what would it be like if it wasn't in the family? And so about 6 months later, I called my dad and said, so what would it be like if I came home? And I wish I could have seen him because I think his jaw hit the floor. So that was the start of it.
So that's the start of the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So what did you see as far as, the challenges that you would have in coming back and getting involved with the business? And when you looked at that, and then you experienced the move back and getting involved in the business, how did that process work out? I mean, I'm sure there were times of, why did I do this?
Not that many, but yes. I mean, a couple of challenges. One, the family piece is complicated, and I really didn't I wanted this to be coming home to my family, not something that would eventually be destructive to the family. So actually after I talked to my dad, the first phone call I made was to my sister. She's younger than me, and there's been always a little bit of, in the shadow of the big sister. Any siblings understand that? And so I wanted to make sure that it was okay with her, that I would come back. The wares are laughing over here. So I made a phone call to her to make sure that it would be okay. And quite honestly, if she hesitated or if she had some concerns, I don't know if I would have come. Like, it was that important to me. But instead she said, how fast can you be here? So that was good. That was one. One other particular challenge in our business, there were people that worked for us that had known me since I was 4 or 5 years old. And so there's this thought, how am I going to come into this? And their perception of me is the little girl in pigtails that ran around here on Saturday morning when my dad, because, business owners work on the weekends. So there was some, trepidation about that piece of it. And then I kind of knew in my heart that I could transition from nonprofit to for-profit, because at the end of the day, they're both running a business. But there was some, would my skills translate, hesitation as well. And I actually started as a customer service agent at Stormy Kromer and Jacquard Fabric Products. I only did that for a couple of months, but it was the best thing I ever did to come into the business, sit in a cubicle, put a headset on, talk to angry customers, talk to happy customers, and I learned all the different facets of the business, but I also built up a lot of credibility, that I wasn't just coming in from far away and thinking I was just going to waltz into the leadership. So those kinds of things helped.
So you talked a little bit about the relationship with your sister. What about with your dad? How has that evolved in this transitioning process?
It's funny because when I was a teenager, my dad and I butted heads pretty strongly, because we're so much alike. We're both pretty strong, pretty smart, pretty opinionated, think we know the way to get things done. So it's kind of funny looking back, because we had some moments when I was a teenager. But truly, I respect I'm sure a lot of you know Bob Jacquard. He's maybe the most well-networked man in the UP. But he is a tremendous leader. I have tremendous respect for what he grew from something very, very small. And he's a great communicator, and it's really just been all about communication, and we're extremely close. We did have some moments I've been back since 2009, so that's the long time we've been doing this. There were I might be jumping ahead to one of your other questions, but I'm on a roll. One of the things that was not done well is that when I came back, there wasn't clarity with me coming back about what kind of time trajectory we were on. And in my mind, it was shorter than in his mind. Now, in hindsight, his timeline was the right one, but there was some tension and some friction, because I had some assumptions in my mind about how this should be progressing and what kind of leadership I should be having as the years went on. And he had a different, so we didn't communicate about that very well early on. But once we got that aligned, we're straight shooters, and we just, hey, Dad, I'm uncomfortable with this, let's talk about it. I think for family businesses, the other thing that's important is to separate a family conversation from a business conversation. I mean, I know some of them are messy and complicated and are both, But there are times where I have to say, are you my boss or my dad right now? Because I'm unclear. And there are differences. So that's, that's the family piece.
Well, and, I've had conversations with you in the past. You've done a great job of seeking outside, leadership and outside coaching and different other things to improve on your skills and your things within the business, not just relying on your dad. Can you tell me a little bit about how that is working as far as evolving, where the transition is going?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty. So we're like very much in the meat of the transition right now, and I'm just gonna do a clarifying. The kinds of things Rich talked about with thinking about succession. There's a million different ways to do that, right? And there's a million different combinations. And we think of the ownership piece in one bucket. That's one conversation. And there's some that's been taken care of quite a long time ago with a legal team and a financial team. And thinking about the tax implications, all of that. And then there's the executive piece of it, the CEO piece. So the financial piece is in place. The CEO piece is what we're heavy into right now, and we'll be actually really making a shift later this year. And as a part of that, we have engaged with actually two outside advisors that are actually coaching both Bob and I on the transition, because he's got a lot of letting go to do. This is his entire life. Last fall was 50 years that he has been in this business. And so he's ready to, he's not going away, let me just clue you all into that. Will be changing roles and focusing on a few things that he's really good at and that he really loves. But we've engaged with two folks from the outside that have some different expertise. Part of it is expertise in how we just straight up continue to grow Stormy Kromer into a national and hopefully international brand. So some of that is brand building and strategic growth, and how do we grow a brand while keeping it family owned and not having giant, deep private equity pockets, because we're not interested in that. We want this to remain a family owned and driven brand. So part of it is that, but it's also, I've not been a CEO before. I'm pretty sure I can do it, but I haven't done it before. And so one of the gentlemen is going to really mentor me on where I need to grow and what kind of CEO the company needs today, because it's different than the kind of CEO the company needed in 1985. So we've got two folks doing that. And then, quite frankly, the Small Business Association of Michigan, being on that board and being exposed to business leaders and business owners throughout the state, because as you all know in the UP, it can get pretty isolating, and let me clue you in, Ironwood feels way more isolated than Marquette, and so sometimes it feels like we don't have those connections to other folks who have been there, done that. There's David Roy, one of the members of SPAM, went through a transition with his father some years back, and he's been invaluable to talk through it with him from that perspective, because there's like emotions and stuff to it. Like the lawyers and all are fine, they help you with that part, but who helps you with the emotional part? Because there is that. So yeah, we've never strayed away from having outside help us think this through.
And again, that's part of what I've admired about chatting with you about the process. And again, a lot of the things that Gina's talking about and doing, that could be somebody internal to your organization. It may not be a family member that you, again, much like what she's doing, going through that grooming process, that education process. You as the business owner, have some fixed ideas of where you want that business to go and things like that. But somebody coming in with new and fresh ideas, and I know Gina and her dad bump heads on some of those things at different points along the way, because they both see the brand. They both have had a vision for the brand for a long, long time. And now it's trying to bring those things together. But elevating that person, that key person within your organization, and educating through that process, if you've been able to find that person, and that person isn't part of your family, again, things like what she's talking about are keys to making a successful transition. Because the key thing is that when Bob walks away, that Gina continues to drive that growth of the brand and drive that growth of the business, not only for her family, but for the community that business is in, because 100 jobs in Ironwood, Michigan is a big employer. So again, understand some of those things. They're not just within a family. it's part of, you know, grooming that next person to run the business. You know, you talked about, you know, your dad had a plan in place a long time ago to talk about transitioning ownership. And again, that for those of you that don't have a plan or haven't started a plan, the best time to start is tomorrow when you get back and start looking at those advisors that can help you put that plan together. The transition plan doesn't have to be for tomorrow, but at some point in time, you need to be laying those seeds, laying that groundwork for that. And you may not have that person identified, those kinds of things today, but understanding the process and educating yourself on the process, the earlier you begin to do that, the more it impacts your business and maximizing that value when you transition. So as we close this up, tell me a little bit about, you know, some of the great experiences that you've been able to go through with your dad as you're looking to, again, elevate, now president, moving to CEO, those kinds of things. What has been maybe some of your proudest moments, maybe some of his proudest moments?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think for him, it's easier for me to answer for him. I think he's, you know, it's been very rewarding for him, for, you know, our generation, the third generation, to be taking this business forward. And I think there's a lot of days where he feels like a very proud dad at work every day, and I think that's awesome. You know, I think just the way that we've been able to grow Stormy Kromer the last few years, and quite honestly, for all of, you know, businesses, it's been tough the last 2 years, right? Like, it's been intense, and we all had to do things we never did before. And I can't really picture doing that with someone else than a family member and maybe, you know, your dad, your biggest champion, and the two of us. Literally, we were both sewing masks at one point in 2020 when that was all that our company could do. Honestly, that might be one of the proudest moments, sitting on the sewing machine floor, both of us making masks, and knowing that we figured out how to keep, you know, folks employed, not having to send people home, not having to lay anyone off. Surviving COVID and frankly coming out on the other side with Stormy Kromer, being on a real trajectory for growth and being able, you know, on a path to adding positions and continuing to add even some of those higher level positions at our facility in Ironwood. Yeah, I'd say this last 2 years, getting through it and doing it with someone as great as Bob Jacquard is, yeah, I couldn't be prouder.
Great. Hey, listen, if you wouldn't mind giving Gina a round of applause for sharing her experience. And Gina, you'll be around in case there's a few specific questions.